What's up, everybody? It's your girl Angie Fox, Coach Angie Fox in the house. And I just want to say thank you all for rolling with your girl today. Y'all know how it is and y'all know what it is. It is time for We Are One, the number one talk show on the number one empowerment platform in the land. Y'all know what it is, www.empowermentpodcastnetwork.com. So do what you do. Call your neighbors, call your friends, call everybody that you know, and tell them that the place to be and the place to stay is We Are One on Empowerment Podcast Network. Go ahead and call everybody you know, and y'all know how it is, right? Y'all can tell by the way I'm talking that I'm already showing off, right? Y'all already know when I got company with me, when I'm not rolling alone, I show off, I show off, I show off. And today is no different. It is my pleasure and my honor to introduce to you all a very real brother. I haven't known him very long. I just met him very recently, but he has proven to be not only a man of God, but a professional and a man who operates in integrity and excellence. So I want you all to give it up, give it up, give it up for my very special guest and your future host of his own talk show right here on this platform, Mr. Algrish Williams. Hi, Algrish. How are you?
Wonderful, Angie. I tell you, it's really a pleasure to be here with you today, man. I tell you, you got me fired up.
Thank you for being here. I want to thank you for saying yes to the invitation to just be with us on today and to just share a little bit about yourself as we try to motivate and encourage our listeners all around the globe. So that's what we do here on We Are One. So before we even go any further, I just want to ask you a very simple question that only you can answer. You ready?
Ready? Let's get it.
Who is Algrish Williams?
Certainly a great question. So, if you know me, you may know a few things about me. If you don't, I'm a native of Jamaica. I was born there, a barefoot boy running across the hilltops of Jamaica, migrated to Boston, Massachusetts, and lived there for several years before I joined the military. But I grew up in what we would know to as humble beginning. In a lifestyle that was somewhat different than most and probably similar to some. Leaving Jamaica, I left a situation where we didn't have. But what I did have was some things I wasn't necessarily happy with. I grew up in a household where there was some domestic dispute that uh, really hurt me to the core, but I felt helpless. When I came to the U.S., I left that part of me to live with my father, but then I came to a different world where people would tease, taunt, being different. Of course, I had a little accent. You don't really hear it now, but I had a little different accent back then, grew out of it. But, went through some tough times, joined the military, and through that process, I really found myself a little different person that loved to give back, loved to help others, loved to build leaders and encourage people to be their best self. So what you see today is remnants of some resiliency, uh, some tough love, and a whole lot of encouragement from mentors and
Okay.
leaders to shape the winning package you see. If you know the story, you'll realize that it wasn't always this good.
And to hear you say you come from humble beginnings and somewhat of not abuse, but what's the word you use? Domestic abuse is what you use?
Yes, yes, yes,
Situations, and to come to the States and be on the receiving end of what we now call bullying.
yes,
We call it teasing back in nowadays, but in
yeah.
these days and times, we call it bullying. And to escape all of that and to become someone who empowers and promotes leadership, and encourage others. Where did that come from? Where did that drive come from? Rather than becoming bitter and selfish and growing up and saying, I'm going to get mine now because I didn't have everything when I was growing up. I'm going to show them, I'm going to in your face kind of an attitude where I don't care about anybody but myself because nobody, what I went through. Where did that selfless drive come from that causes you to want to help and empower others rather than just look out for yourself?
You know, I think for me, a lot of it came from, I think, watching my grandfather, even going back to Jamaica where I lived with my grandmother for a little while. My grandparents really taught me a lot when it comes to the example of what a good leader, a true leader should be. One that not only care, but apply empathy, but give back. Uh, I attribute a lot of the start with my grandparents.
Okay.
And then moving here into the States, going through school and having to, as you said, going through the bullying situation. I had one teacher that, that came to mind. Her name was Miss Chestnut. This lady was phenomenal. She was one of the leaders in a program that I was in called MASPET, Master's for Engineering Program. But she saw something in me that I didn't see in myself because at some point in time I had very low self-esteem. I could, I just showed up. But she looked at a photo of me and she mentioned that I had beautiful eyes. And for the life of it, I didn't know what she was talking about. All I heard was I'm ugly, I'm black, I'm this, all these negative things. And, I started looking at myself a little differently. I actually came home and I tell you, I'm not an artist by any means, but I drew my face just to look at myself to say, what is she talking about? But I recognized something in the illustration that I drew. And from that moment, I found myself a little differently. I started looking at myself a little differently. I said, if she see this in me, then why can't I see it in myself?
That's it.
And from there, I joined JROTC. I started getting active with track and field, volleyball, various different clubs in the school. I really just started finding myself doing things where I can add value to others and help others. But I tell you, ROTC probably was the icing on the cake because as soon as I jumped into ROTC, or then it was Army ROTC, they put me in charge. I call it a first sergeant, a diamond one leader, right? And so that role had me really mentoring and guiding other people. And I didn't know, I probably didn't even know what I was doing, but I was supposed to help others. I was supposed to do these things. My commander at the time gave me a list of things that I should have been doing. And all in all, it was really just being a person with kind heart, caring for others, giving back, volunteering in the community and serving. Those are things that we've done in the church. Those are things that my parents, my grandparents was teaching me. And so
what was instilled in you by your grandparents and church leaders, you actually, and not mention your teacher that saw.
they just,
Yeah, so you had
absolutely.
others to instill in you, or at least ignite the flame to show you who you really are.
Right.
And I love that. What a teachable moment that is, though. You said you drew a picture of yourself to see if you could see what the teacher saw. And that, along with what was instilled in you by your grandparents and leaders in the church, catapulted you into changing your mindset as far as how you thought about yourself. But once we change our mindset as far as how we see ourselves, then we can really see ourselves.
Yes.
So I love that.
Absolutely.
And kudos and shout outs to your commander in ROTC that saw enough in you to make you a leader, to continue and instilling that in you and giving you responsibilities as a leader. So you became a mentor and a leader of others, commanding others to change and encouraging them without even, as you say, knowing what you were doing all the time. But
absolutely.
From what I see, even reading your bio and after meeting you the way that we met, I see that in you. So it sounds to me like you nurtured that and it became a part of who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And faith had a lot to do with it. When you think about that moment where someone sees something in you, it's a spark. What you call it is hope. And sometimes, psychologists would tell you, or psychiatrists would tell you to take a mirror and look at yourself and talk to yourself, encourage yourself. So that's essentially what happened. Is someone encouraged me to find myself, and allow me to act in that moment. But God did the rest. It was already there. I just needed a spark of hope to pull
Right.
myself out of that rut that I was in. Because, you know, when you start going downhill, you spiral and you continue to spiral, find anything positive. When you're going downhill, all you're seeing is, woe is me. And so, you know, at the end of the day, if you are that person, find that one thing, just one that you like about you. And then after you find that one thing, find one more and just keep going. I
Yeah.
promise you, if you could find one, and
One.
prayer works. Somebody was praying for me. Somebody.
I love it. I love that. We all know, we come from the church, so we all know how important prayer is, right? Many of us
Indeed.
are still here today because somebody prayed for us.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But you already jumped the gun a little bit and went into my next question. I was going to ask you, how do you use what you were taught to help others? But you've already said it, and I love that. Find that one thing. So you're listening to this broadcast today. Find one thing about yourself. And how did you put it? That you like,
Yeah, and there's
and
at least 100 more. Keep looking.
and
Find,
keep
you know, you,
looking.
you just find one and start with the one, and there's got to be something else you like about it. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what others necessarily may like about you. You have to find it within yourself. You know, as I stated before, Miss Chestnut pointed out something. I didn't believe it. I had to go find it. And when I found it, I just kept looking at, well, if this is true, then what else? You know, and that what else was me being the person I was, kind, even though people were mean and they were doing all these things to me. I was never doing those things. So I continued to do the things I do. I helped someone. If someone fell, I picked them up, right? If they needed something and I was able to give it to them, I gave it to them. And, you know, those things, you know, referred to as empathy. If you see things that people aren't doing so well and you can add value, then add value. That's, you know, leadership. It's really, it's not a destination, it's a
Right.
journey. And so when you start, you keep going. Now I haven't arrived yet because obviously I'm still here. God's still working on me. And
Right.
so, but you know, I allow him to do those things in me. And at the end of the day, I love helping people. I love giving back, and I love to help leaders better at what they do. Because some leaders don't understand the process. Some leaders believe that they just manage, tell people what to do, and that's all it is about being a leader. Whereas they forget that you got to meet them where they are. You got to
That's
know
it.
something about them. You got to understand what makes them, what motivates them, what's their desire, what do they want to achieve, and then you stand up and look out and see all the things that's in the way, those obstacles, and you guide them through those obstacles and allow them to not only take on the responsibilities, but you encourage and inspire and motivate and direct them to do the things that is going to make them great. And then you capitalize on that and continue to encourage.
I love it. And I've learned that leaders are not only selfless, but they put others' needs before their own. So everything that you're saying exemplifies that. So how did you transition, or maybe you didn't transition, maybe it was always there, but how did you become a leader of leaders, teaching and guiding leaders to be able to be effective in what they do? Talk to us about your,
That's
I don't know if it's
and
your
that's another
career
interesting
or how
question
did you get
because
there?
well, if you ask me, and if you ask like especially my wife, I would always say that I'm not really that leader. I'm just me, because I didn't look at it as necessarily a leader. I looked at me just being someone who wanted to encourage others, someone who wanted to bring hope and help others see the best in themselves. And I think many times I had mentors who saw those things in me that I didn't see in myself and put me in a position even when I choose not to. Because one thing you'll find out about me, I don't like titles. I just like doing me. I don't have to have a title in order to do something. But if I see you and I know you need it, I'm going to give it to you. If that is an uplift to your spirit, understand what you're looking for, understand where you want to go, then I'm going to show you how I made it and what I did. But in answering that question, you know, not only um, the military, and I tell you, I give a lot of credit to the Army for putting me in those tough positions. And
Okay.
I would tell you up front, most of the times when I got put in them positions, I was the one, I don't want to do it. I just don't want to do that. I'm not doing it, right? But you know, I had some mentors, and I tell you, the one that came to mind. I remember I was in Iraq, and this gentleman, I tell you, he had so much faith, and not even the faith, but the patience, which obviously led back to faith in me. He asked me to do something. And I told him no. Now this gentleman, it was a colonel. Here I am, a young non-commissioned officer, you know, senior non-commissioned officer at the time, but he wanted me to be his advisor. And in my mind, at the time, I was an E7. He had two E8s in his organization. So we can use those E8s. My job is down here. You got E8s up there. Why would you want me to come be your advisor when you have two seniors that are fully capable? And in his view, that, you know, that's not what he wanted. He saw something else, and he wanted me to be that person. And for 2 weeks, I turned him down. For 2 weeks, he courted me. He called me. He had me sit down with him. He broke bread with me. He expressed so much about himself and what he was looking for, and you know, really took his time to nurture me. And what in that process, what he was doing was getting to know me a little bit more, to see what made me tick. And after he started pulling those things out, he just turned around and used those same things to say, that's why you're the best candidate. That's why I needed you for this. But it wasn't the fact that he needed me. It was the fact that I felt that someone else was capable. They were getting paid to do the job. Let them do it, right? But at the end of the day, years later, what he did and what God did was let him to pull me and put me in that position. One of the probably toughest position I had in a deployed environment, where I was responsible for 16 plus hundred housing space, responsible for the entire operating base in terms of the things that were going on the base, whether it was morale and welfare activities, whether it was dining facilities, whatever it was I was responsible to help facilitate and lead those efforts. And you know, that was a lot to me at the time as a young leader to take on. But he again believed in me so much so that even at the end, when I left there, you know, he mentioned, and a lot of folks did that. You know, he appreciated the fact that I allowed him to push me to do what I should have done anyway. But I say all that to tell you, sometimes you are the right person. Sometimes you're that leader, and you may not want to do certain things. And if you think about faith, you know, God will guide us in places, and we tend to go the other way because I don't want that responsibility. I don't want to do those things. But if you're the right person at the right time, then do what it is that you can do and what it is you were prepared to do. But in all of those things, I'm so excited that I did take that job some umpteen years later, because that job propelled me to not only left that role, but I came back to the United States and went to an even more strategic leadership role. And from that, I went to an even more strategic leadership role. And I continue all the way up to the Pentagon and back down. But I say all that to say sometimes we can block our own blessing.
That's right. That's right. God knows exactly what we need.
Of what God has put in front of us.
So he was preparing you all along. So every assignment was preparation time for you to where you were going and where you are and where you're yet to go. Like you said, you haven't arrived yet. So just think, everything from the time you came to live with your dad was preparing you and instilling skills, leadership skills in you. And the quality that you possess, or qualities you possess, are seen by others.
Yes.
So much so that you're called upon to sit in places and to have the task of doing things that you think other people should be doing, but the call was on you.
Yeah.
So just think, just saying yes and walking into it, like you said, it propelled you for where you are. And each assignment, you said, is more strategic.
Absolutely.
And probably more challenging, but you kept going.
Kept going.
So let's talk a little bit about, as the founder and CEO of Williams Leadership Consulting and Williams Education Foundation. Talk to us about those two organizations.
Also with Williams Leadership Consultant, so when I left the military, and I left the military at a period season role, and oftentimes I don't give credit where credit is due there. So when I left the Army, I left as what we would call a garrison command sergeant major, and that is, if you equate it to the civilian sector, it's like being a city manager, but being responsible for around 25 plus thousand individual living on that installation, about 51 plus acres, 51,000 acres, and about $3.5 billion in not only revenue into the city of Columbia, but overall assets and so forth. Uh, Leaving that role, I went right into the corporate space after I transitioned from the military.
Okay.
And what I noticed was that at the core, there's some things that aren't always clear. You have managers and you have leaders. And sometimes we confuse the two, and we have people that are put in position to lead people, and they don't recognize that just because you're good at a skill or a task doesn't mean that you can manage people the same way. And so, as a result of observing these things throughout my career and then transitioning over to the private sector, I saw there was a gap where we needed to help prepare leaders, uh, not just because they're good at a job, but set them up with tools, coaching, mentoring, and different things that will allow them to not only lead with purpose, but being intentional about it in a way that will ensure that they're successful, but being people first focused, not so self focused. And so I founded Williams Leadership Consulting to do just that. But when I started it, I kind of held myself back because I didn't jump right in the way I should. So I decided, why don't I just start writing? So I started writing. I started writing to people. I started writing to veterans that were transitioning out. And
Okay.
the veterans didn't quite understand the process. So I wrote my first book called Navigate the Transition, a veteran's guide to excelling in corporate networking. Because
Wow.
they have to understand how to build a brand, how to network and communicate in a way that will allow them to be successful. But here's the truth. It's not just for veterans. It's for anyone that want to transition from one into the next. It's a simple
Right.
thing. And then I turned around and focused more on the leadership aspect of it. My second book was A Lead with Purpose, Unleash the Power of Meaningful Leadership. And in so doing, I co-authored with another author called Pulling the Strings. And so the premise here is that I founded this organization to fill a gap. But my passion is not just leadership. My passion is also education. Because as I shared with you earlier, I'm here today with much confidence because of an educator. Now, when you think back to that time, that educator, I don't even think she today still know what she did and how she's impacted my life, right? Think about how many people committed suicide or
Yes.
done some crazy things because no one believed in them. I believe that our educators are underpaid, unappreciated,
Definitely.
and
Definitely.
undervalued. And so when I founded this organization, the Williams Education Foundation, my sole goal was to empower educators by not only providing financial assets to them in the beginning of the school year. I'd like to give each educator at least $1,000 so that they can stop spending their personally short-term change because they're not getting paid. Let's be
Not
real
much.
about it. They're not getting paid, right? And what they get paid, they turn around selflessly and give it back to their kids in the
Yeah.
classroom. And so I want to help with that burden. But then at the end of the year, I want to celebrate them. I want to give them a little extra so that they can celebrate themselves and recognize that we do care. I care. People care. And I believe that our educators are the future leader builders of our state and across the globe. Those educators are impactful. And when you look at our governments and other organizations, we continue to continuously take money away from the education system.
Yes.
So again, my goal is to empower educators and find ways to help them relieve some of that burden. So that's why I founded Williams
I love
Education
it.
Foundation.
I applaud you for that, my brother. That is amazing. So how can not just educators or veterans, but how can we reach you? How can our listeners find you, order your book, especially order your book? How can we get your book, and how can we contact you for any assistance, whether it's consulting, whether it's educators that need to be part of the foundation, or and even how we can give to you? Talk to us about how to contact Algrish Williams.
So to contact me, and I am available on most social media platforms, specifically LinkedIn. That's where I land most of my communication.
Okay.
Facebook, I'm there as well, and IG. But I would say, you can go on my website, williams-leadership.com, and from there you can contact me, or you can email me directly at williams leadershipconsultant@gmail.com.
Okay, so you all heard it here. Contact him by email or go to his website, and let's bombard this brother email today. And let's get those books. And any educators, if you're listening or know any educators that are selflessly giving to their students in their classrooms and they need assistance, or they just want to connect with somebody who will help encourage them to keep going, let's tell them all about Algrish Williams. Listen, my brother, I said it once, I say it again. I applaud you for all that you're doing. And I am just so grateful that you are still here doing what God has given you to do and stepping out on faith and finding that voice, that one act that catapulted your whole life. And just to encourage those that are listening, what would be your greatest advice? Because you said you give all respect and you acknowledge that one teacher that saw one thing and she said it to you, not realizing probably even now to this day how she impacted your life, simply by telling you you have nice eyes, that made you want to look and see, what does she see, what is she looking at? But it stirred something in you to start you on a path of growth, self-confidence, recognizing and stepping out on faith, and even to getting to walk into your purpose. So what would be your greatest advice for those listening today that will help encourage them or empower them to their next, or to even bring somebody else along?
So I'll tell you. So I want to step back just a little bit. So I neglected to answer part of your first question, which is where my books located? They're on Amazon.
Yes,
so,
Amazon. Tell us the name before you go to the second question. Tell us the names of your books again.
So the first one is Navigate the Transition: a veteran guide to excelling in corporate networking, and the second one is Lead with Purpose, and Unleash the Power of Meaningful Leadership. And then the other book that I'm a contributing author to is Pulling the String. So if you go to Amazon and type in Algrish, you'll see three
You'll
books.
find your books.
All three books. So I'm the only
All right,
Algrish on
everybody.
Amazon, right? But in terms of advice I would give to this audience today is, what is your why, right? So think about who you are, why you get up every single day. It could be to support your family, to support yourself, to support your kids, or to give back. Understand your why. If you understand your why, your purpose will be so much more clear. And if you don't understand your why, you need some help with that, call me. We could talk about it. But if you don't want to call me, look around your organization, look where you are today, connect with a mentor, connect with somebody that will hold you accountable and help encourage you to be the best you that you can be. And then lean into those, and then lean forward, because sometimes you run away from the greatest things that's assigned to you. And if it's assigned to you, then God did it on purpose. It is for you.
I love it. That's right. And listen, you have nice eyes. So take one thing, find one thing that you like about yourself. Let's take that tool and run with it. Find one thing that you like about yourself. Marry that one thing, and then look for another, and then another and another. He said that you got 100 things that you like about yourself. Find them all. And I'm here to tell you, once you learn to appreciate and love yourself, there's nothing that can bring you down. I'm telling you, my brother, I just want to thank you and honor you today for being such an awesome leader and mentor for all of us, and an advocate for so many. Thank you for being that voice of encouragement to those others. And we're going to be calling, listen, if you want a mentor, he said, find one. Let's find him. Okay? Call Algrish Williams. and let him help lead and guide you to your next. That's what he does. He's a leader's leader. Call on him and let him and share, but share part of his expertise. He lived through it. And I admire you for it. I honor you for it. Even being in the military, I know so many, I have children that are veterans. And there were some difficult moments transitioning back to civilian life, or like as you call it, the private sector. There were some struggles that they had and some challenges they're overcoming, with therapy and of course each other supporting. Four of our children actually were in the military. One of them is still serving. The other three were Army veterans, and they are getting it together and getting this civilian life on the road. But so many don't. So many others don't have that. They don't have the support system or someone with patience to help them through or guide them through, transitioning back into the private sector. So we see a lot of mental health issues developing from that, and that's my passion. So we see a lot of that going on, and many of our veterans don't have anyone to reach out to. So thank you for being an advocate, a veterans advocate, to help them with that transition. So if you know anyone, all of you who are listening to this broadcast, if you know anyone who is struggling, anyone that's transitioning from one part of life to another, or one spectrum of life to another, they can call Algrish. But especially if you know a veteran, and sometimes our veterans get left behind. We don't think so. Those of us who've been civilians all of our lives, we see veterans have benefits that we don't have. But what we don't see are the struggles and the severe challenges that many of them have. So if you know any veterans, let's connect them with Algrish. Give them Algrish contact information and let them talk to someone who advocates for them on a daily basis, even through his books. We're going to get those books. I'm going to Amazon as soon as this broadcast is over, and I'm going to pull your name up and I'm going to advertise. We're going to promote getting your books, because you all haven't heard the last of him. This young man will be coming back on Empowerment Podcast Network. Not We Are One. He will be back with his own show. I'm saying it out loud, so you heard it here first. He didn't tell me that. I'm telling him he's coming back with his own show on his own podcast right here on Empowerment Podcast Network, because we need to hear more from him. The world says we don't help each other and we're all selfish. Well, he's a testament that is not true. So again, I want to say I applaud you. Our listeners applaud you. And thank you for being an advocate for so many and a leader. We thank God for you visiting with us today. So all of you who are tuned into this broadcast, go ahead and look up Algrish Williams on all of our social media websites. Don't forget his website and his email address, and he's going to give it to you before he says goodbye again. So I want you all to remember it, that you heard it here. Contact him, and then come back and keep coming back to the #1 empowerment podcast platform in the land, and keep watching more We Are One, as we're bringing more and more people coming to your front to empower you to step past all obstacles, do the necessary work, and realize every single dream. It's your time. So Algrish, before we say goodbye, tell us one last time your email address and your website, so that all of our listeners can come on your website, email you, and find you today.
Absolutely. Again, Angie, I really want to thank you for pulling up with me today. This has been a joy. I love even listening to your story. You're an exciting person to listen to. So I appreciate you for not only honoring me, but I honor you for who
Thank you.
are. And so, again, Algrish Williams, you could find me on LinkedIn. My website is Williams, common spelling, -leadership.com. You could find my books on Amazon. Just type in Algrish in the browser and you will see it there. Or you can email me at williamsleadershipconsulting@gmail.com.
Yes, thank you again, and we look forward to hearing more from you in the very, very near future. God bless you all for tuning in with us today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And keep coming back to Empowerment Podcast Network, where we are one is always in the house. God bless you. Y'all have a wonderful, wonderful, productive week.
As well.